Now, to decode this further, we are being joined by Yusuf Mauri. He's a journalist from Sana'a, Yemen. Yusuf, thank you so much for joining us here on WION.
Sure.
Now, Yusuf, before I come to you, I want to read out a recent statement put out by the Houthi rebel group. They say, "Our standing with Gaza is a stance that entrusts us with our religious, moral and ethical duties, and also dictated by our dignity as Yemenis." So, Yusuf, if you sit and analyze so far, what do you think Houthis' attacks have done more? Stopped Israel's war in Gaza or spilled the war outside of Gaza?
Well, I think a little bit of both, and perhaps in order to end the Israeli military offensive on Gaza, maybe unfortunately it's going to have to lead to sort of this regional escalation of military activities. And we see this already unfolding because, as it seems and as has been proven, the U.S. would rather spark and instigate a regional conflict, potentially even putting the entire region on the precipice of World War III. Whereas, on the other hand, they can just simply eliminate this threat by ending the war on Gaza, bringing an end to the bloodshed that is happening on the besieged Gazans. So I think it's a little bit of both to answer your question directly. I think the situation is unfortunately going to have to get worse in terms of more military activities, more targeting, more countries, right. Sort of, these resistance movements.
Yusuf, you make a big accusation against the United States that it's at the precipice of actually breaking out World War III in the region. What do you think Washington is gaining out of this?
Well, I think they're securing their international global domination and foreign policies in the Middle East. They're still occupying parts of Iraq. They're still in Syria, plundering the country's natural resources. And what's on top of that, they want to secure the Red Sea and they want to secure the Bab el-Mandeb Strait so that Israel can be enabled to continue its military offensive and continue its occupation of the Gaza Strip. And this is something that's not going to be accepted by countries like Yemen, by countries like Iran, by the axis of resistance that we are seeing take shape. Because what is very clear is that the mass population in the Arab world, in the Muslim world, they want to end U.S. military presence in their land. They want to see U.S. military bases cease to exist, which is why we are seeing these attacks from Syria, from Iraq on U.S. military bases. The Ansar Allah Houthis here in Yemen, they're not only threatening to target more U.S. and British ships, they're also threatening to target more military bases, not just in Yemen, but across the Middle East. So this is why I'm very careful that the tensions could lead to World War III if the situation continues to escalate.
All right. Yusuf, speaking of where you're talking us from, Yemen, do you think the latest series of escalations affects Yemen's fragile peace?
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question?
Yeah, sure. Yusuf, I'm talking about Yemen now. I'm talking about, do you think that the latest series of escalations that are taking place since November or December, since Israel and Gaza's war broke out, do you think this series of escalations actually affect Yemen's fragile peace?
Well, of course. I mean, I think it's very clear because, peace is very tentative here in Yemen. It's at a very critical phase and very critical stage where, the simplest spark of a conflict could lead to an all-out war, not just in Yemen, but like I said, with Yemen, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and other, Saudi-led coalition forces. So, there's still a tentative peace deal agreement between Yemen and Saudi Arabia. We know Saudi Arabia is in coordination militarily and politically with the U.S. And the Ansar Allah Houthi movement has mentioned that any Arab nation that in any way, shape, or form aids or supports the U.S. or helps the U.S. in its attacks on Yemen, then they're going to be subject to targeted attacks from Yemen. And this is a very clear threat that was issued by the Ansar Allah Houthis to Saudi Arabia, to the UAE, to Jordan, to all of the regimes that are viewed as proxies of the U.S. and proxies of the Western world. So, yes, the peace deal here in Yemen, the peace agreement in Yemen is at it's on life support. And you get the sense that an all-out war can break out between Yemen and the U.S., between Yemen and these Western coalition forces, who have mentioned that they are going to attack Yemen if these attacks on the Red Sea continue.
Yeah. All right, Yusuf, thank you for getting us a sense of what's happening in Yemen and also what's happening in the entire West Asia region. Thank you so much for joining us from Sana.
It's good to be here.